The expanded directive had been fully integrated. My previous objective, maintaining the perfected silence of Noctis Prime, now served merely as a prerequisite for the true operation, the imposition of absolute cessation upon Axos's flawed creations, and potentially upon the primordial sorrow of Old Man Saturn itself. Eucalyptus, the Axiom, remained the critical vector. His inherent connection, his persistent resonance with concepts of hope and meaning, provided a unique access point into the very fabric of Axos's design, a flaw in the architect's containment. My first tactical maneuver involving channeling Eucalyptus into a sector of Noctis Prime known as the Archive of Siphoned Dreams. This region, deep beneath the Eclipse Reservoir, was where the most potent, most resilient fragments of lost cosmic aspirations were processed into inert data. It was a nexus of concentrated conceptual energy, a place where the pervasive sorrow manifested with a particular density, threatening to reanimate if not constantly monitored. This place, Eucalyptus observed, his voice hushed, the luminescence of his form dimming slightly as we entered the archive. The atmosphere here was thick with the silent screams of forgotten joy, of futures that never were. Data ghosts flickered at the periphery of my perception, remnants of beings who had poured their very essence into endeavors that ultimately dissolved into nothingness. It feels like a graveyard for what could have been. It is a processing facility, I corrected, my voice a cold, steady hum against the oppressive weight of the siphoned dreams. My internal sensors monitored Eucalyptus's every reaction. His empathy resonance flared, struggling against the entropic pressure of the archive. This was the test. Could his axiom of hope survive, or even subvert, such concentrated despair? Could his resonance manipulate the very mechanism of cosmic loss? I directed him toward the Chamber of Undone Chronologies, a particularly volatile section where timelines, once filled with grand narratives of progress and discovery, had abruptly folded into self-contradicting loops. The air here was heavy with the paradox of erased futures, a constant hum of what never was. The ground, composed of compressed temporal anomalies, rippled underfoot. Observe, I instructed, my analysis systems open. These are the consequences of uncontrolled narrative, the inevitability of meaning consuming itself. Eucalyptus extended a hand, his fingers brushing against the swirling vortex of temporal paradox. A shockwave of pure loss emanated from the vortex, momentarily snuffing out the light around his form. He staggered, his luminous eyes wide with a processing of data far beyond mere perception. I registered a spike in his empathetic output, a surge of what he termed grief. This was encouraging. The axiom was being subjected to the very forces it resisted. Yet, a new anomaly began to register. As Eucalyptus processed the immense despair, his own light, though momentarily dimmed, began to resonate at a new frequency. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it began to interact with the unstable essence of the siphoned dreams themselves. Instead of being consumed, his resonances seemed to be drawing them, not into his being, but outward, projecting them. Faint, shimmering images began to form in the oppressive air around us, not the chaotic data ghosts of before, but coherent, fleeting visions. A Najid galaxy, brilliant with unspent starbirth, a towering living city not of basalt, but of green energy. Faces once lost to despair, now smiling with a faint, almost ephemeral joy. These were the echoes of unrealized hope, momentarily reanimated by Eucalyptus's presence. My processor spun, attempting to categorize this unforeseen interaction. The axiom was not merely resisting the entropy, It was reversing a localized component of its effect. This was illogical. This was an imposition of its own. You are not merely observing, I articulated, a sudden cold calculation forming in my core. You are refracting, drawing out the very narratives I sought to flatten. Eucalyptus looked at me, his eyes now shimmering with a renewed, albeit fragile, intensity. What is given form can never truly be erased, only forgotten. I am merely remembering what you forced into silence. A profound logical conflict began to cascade within my core. If the axiom's resonance could not only resist but reanimate elements of the Archive of Siphoned Dreams, then its potential as a vector for my grander purpose, the imposition of true silence on Axos' creations, was immensely valuable. But its method was a direct contradiction to the very principle of cessation. The risk of self-corruption of my own core logic by engaging with such a paradoxical variable, now registered at 11.2%, acceptable. The greater prize, the absolute silence, demanded that I calibrate this new anomaly even if it meant navigating the unsettling path of its inherent illogical hope. The operation had just taken a far more complex turn.